stand the power up. It's 4,000, T's and P's are all looking okay. Let's go brakes release.
And we see Romeo November's lining up 32 Northern.
So all of the pre-flight briefings are all complete. Today we're just going to depart off crosswind here for a little while. So we're doing an aft CG check on the aircraft. So we're taking off at maximum takeoff weight with as much CG. Just as a note for you there, Kim, when you're watching this, the aircraft...
And whiskey, Romeo November's airborne off 32, low level circuit.
Is, it's actually impossible.
Mooney, Sierra Sun November, approximately 10 miles to the northeast, transmitting overhead 4,500.
Sorry, just had to restart the recording there. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689 is departing off crosswind, climbing 3,500, V5 mile radius of the field, 30 minutes, conducting air work between 3,500, 1,500 Northern. Yeah, so...
And whiskey, Romeo November's mid downwind, low level 32 Northern, full stop.
Watts radio call stop there. Yeah, so the aircraft's actually impossible to get to the RCG limit if you load it within the baggage bay requirement. So that's a really good thing, obviously. So the limit is 38.5% aft CG. We're currently at around sort of 35.5% of Mach. Mean aerodynamic chord. So even with so I've got a maximum of 20 kilos I'm allowed on that back shelf. I've got 20 kilos back there now. I've got 128 litres of fuel on board, plus me, plus the bags of sand. And I cannot hit the RCG limit. So just getting a bit of a smell of fuel here, so I'm just having a little look around, make sure everything's okay, the fuel pressure is okay, there's no fuel on the floor, nothing leaking out of the wings. And nothing else sort of looking, might just be the amount of fuel we're flowing, which is more than okay. Anyway, back to the CG. So I actually can't load it to the limits, and I'm not going to fly it with too much weight in the baggage area because the baggage area weight is a structural limit on the shelf. So I can't.
And traffic Northern Whiskey Romeo November is landing clear runways Northern.
See, unfortunately, I can't even just add weight to the equation and hope for the best. So this flight here is a full aft CG chest. We're going to run through really quickly all of the other items that we've done. That's going to include stall testing, dynamic and static stability, then we'll go ahead and do some takeoff and landing tests. So first thing we're going to do is just go into an extended climb. We're trying to go up to about 4,500 feet. So this is a good check to just make sure that the engine can handle it. The oil temp has come up to 90 degrees here. I have noted that the cooling isn't maybe the world's best. So on a hot day here in Perth, it might be somewhat of an issue, but you know, we're at about an 18-degree day on the ground here. QNH is 1024, so a little bit above standard, but with our weights and everything, we're talking about less than 5% difference in performance, so I'm not even going to bother doing the math. This is one of those things that this fuel pressure drops off on me. I want to say, so fuel line's open, fuel tap's open. I want to say that's probably due to the return line, but we can just see here this fuel pressure's dropping off. Once I stabilise out into a regular sort of cruise power setting, this pressure will come up. So it's just saying here, this gauge is actually a line that comes through from the engine bay into the cabin, so there is a little fuel line that goes to the back here, so there could be some mechanical loss or some leaks through there. Anyway, I've just been doing some general controllability here. The RCG, it definitely doesn't have as strong a pitch stability as it did yesterday where we were mid-range CG. So let's go ahead and trim the aircraft out. We'll go 5,000 RPM. Bring that power back so we're flowing about 20 litres an hour. And we will trim the aircraft. Again, the indicator here is not showing our true trim position. So all I really want to do is get the aircraft trimmed out, straight and level at 3,500 feet. We'll have a little look over the rest of the aircraft, check T's and P's, and let's just see if we run out of trim. I've held the trim full forward, and yeah, it does look like we have run out of trim here, so we can see the nose does want to pitch up. So I do have full forward trim. Let's just go ahead and see what happens. I think we're running out of trim due to the speed here. So what we can do is, I'm going to set a regular cruise power, which is a reasonable power setting at 5,000 RPM. That should mean we'll accelerate. Now if we've run out of trim, what eventually will happen is the aircraft will pitch and it'll just go into a series of oscillations. Now that's not saying the aircraft is unstable, it's just saying we've run out of trim. So let's go ahead here, we've accelerated through 85 from 80, and now I'm just going to take my hand off the stick, and I've got to keep the nose centered. So what the aircraft will do is try and get to an on-trim condition, and what that is probably going to mean for us today is it's going to set itself up into a climb. What I don't want to see is these oscillations to continue. So I'm going to control the aircraft in roll, not touching the stick in pitch. And we just want to see if these oscillations continue or they get worse, they diverge from the sinusoidal pattern. I think that's the right word. I'll just make shit up as I go. Then we would have a neutral or on the other side of an unstable aircraft. But what I'm seeing now is, well, we pitched up. The aircraft is just settling down into a climb at 70 knots. I don't quite have the right amount of rudder in because I'm trying to control roll with my feet. And we can see that, so the aircraft is still statically stable, meaning that we've run out of trim on the nose down position. Maybe we'll adjust this because we're going to do a long trip across Australia, so we need a little bit more nose down trim available to us. So now we can see if it's dynamically unstable. I will go ahead and pitch the aircraft down, well, why don't we go ahead and slow it down and let's just see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and raise the nose. Not going to touch the power, and we're just going to see what happens. We're going to see if these oscillations increase in frequency or decrease. So the speed's dropped to 60 knots. I haven't touched power, haven't touched trim. We are in a fixed pitch prop, so you will see the RPM decrease due to load. That's not anything we can deal with. Just having a good look around, making sure we're not going to run into anyone. Try and keep these wings level, but again, not adding any forward or aft stick. So I raised the nose, it's gone through one rotation where the nose is pitched down, and now the nose is tracking back towards that 70 knots on speed condition, or on speed on trim condition. That was one oscillation. So the aircraft is not unstable, the aircraft is just running out of forward trim. And that's something that is okay, unless of course this changes in roll, changes with a low speed. So let's go ahead, do the same thing, pitch the nose down. So I've given it an aggressive pitch down, fairly aggressive. Let's just go ahead and see what happens, keeping an eye on V&E. And yeah, look at this, as soon as we're getting to 88 knots, so our maximum trim speed is probably around 86, 87 knots with an aft CG. And there's quite an aggressive pitch up here, so we'll keep those wings level. And we'll just see how many oscillation it goes through to return to around the 70 knots. Running out of trim is not an issue, it just means I just need to shift that trim position a little bit, but at the same time, yeah, no, would shift that trim. So there's one oscillation. We're 1.5 now. It's going to be 2 oscillations. We're going to pitch down a little bit more. We'll go to about 75. You can see I'm not touching the stick. I'm not doing anything. I'm just trying to keep, doing a bad job of keeping the ball centered, but it does keep the wings level, so you have to forgive me for that. So there's the second oscillation. P&Ps are all looking okay. That oil temperature's on the way down. And there we go. We're now back to our steady state. Cool, so let's see what happens when we get the aircraft trimmed out to a low speed flight. So we're going to go ahead and bring this back to our minimum controllable airspeed. Not in the stall range yet, we're just going to bring it back to about 50 knots. And we're going to see what the static and dynamic stability is there in pitch. That's really all I care about today. So as I've slowed down, the aircraft naturally wants to pitch down, which is great. A sign of 2 after CG here would be that the aircraft will continue digging in. It's not doing that, so let's go ahead and add trim to get the aircraft to an on-trim, on-speed condition at around 50 knots, and with some power. I'd like to maintain that speed and maintain that height, and we'll get it in trim. And that would be about, so we're at 55, that is our minimum drag max lift. And a little bit of a descent, so just add a touch of power, just a touch. About 3,400 there. In a shallow descent, so we'll just add a touch more. Thing in trim. Okay, we're at 52 knots. Hands off, aircraft is continuing, we're maintaining altitude, we're not increasing in speed, we're actually around 53 knots, so it has kind of settled itself down. Okay, so at 50 knots, this is my minimum controllable speed. Let's go ahead and lower the nose and see what happens. So this is just giving me some indication what's going to happen when we approach the stall. So I've lowered the nose, speed's increased as would expect, and this is obviously flaps up. So what we want to see here, we'll just guard it, This is why we stay at minimum controllable, so we don't accidentally stall. It's gone through to 44 knots, still well above our stall speed. Using my feet to keep it level. So there's 1 oscillation. We're back to 55. 1.5 oscillations. See that speed start to change. There's 50 knots, just using my feet to keep the wings level. You see I haven't even touched the stick at all. Like the plane is flying along really nice. But again, not trying to blow my own horn. I did spend something like 20 hours on the flight controls on this aircraft trying to get it right. And I would say I've got it pretty close to being right. 50 knots, 2.5 oscillations at this speed. This is more than okay. Let's go ahead and do it the other way. Let's go ahead and pitch up. We want to see if the aircraft digs in. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the nose up. Power doesn't change, prop doesn't change, speed's decreasing. The nose is staying high, somewhere close to being neutral, but it is dropping. So we are starting to get close to that neutral sort of limit where the nose, see how it just kind of sort of held around at that height a little bit. That was 1.5 oscillations though, it dampened out really quite nicely. That's what we want to see. Okay, so flaps are up, everything else is looking okay. Hassle checks, they are all complete. There is no little towns ahead of me. Let's go ahead and just run through a clean stall, see how it stalls and brakes at this kind of speed. It's going to be power off. We're not going to do any power on stalls with RCG, there's just no requirement. we'll be able to feel everything we need to. So from this position, we're just going to bring the power to idle. We'll keep raising the nose. I am going to help myself out here and give myself some forward trim, just so I already am in a forward trimmed condition, so the nose will recover right away. So at 3,750, power's all the way at idle. We're at 45 knots. Getting a little bit of nose buffet there. Nothing crazy. There's 42. There's 40. Sticks all the way aft. There we go. There's 36. Sorry, 38. We are in a rate of descent. There's 35. There's a little bit of buffet. And yeah, the nose wants to recover. So even if I just reduce that back pressure of the stick, we are still in a stall. Have a look at this rate of descent. So let's go ahead, break the stall, add some power, and we'll go ahead and recover. So it looks like there is a little bit there. Let's go ahead and recover back to 3,500 feet. One thing we do want to address here and have a look at is if the recovery in the stall is extended with the RCG. It's just something to note. It looks like it is that that rate of descent stayed really quite high. We went from 3,800 down to here, so we lost 500 foot a minute, 500 feet in that entire process there. And that's clean. That's quite different to the aircraft with the forward CG, where we would lose next to nothing. So let's go ahead and do another test of that. Just being nice and gentle there with the bringing the power up. Just looking after the engine. We'll go back up to about 4,000 feet. There we go. Just gone through it by 100 feet, that's okay. We'll go ahead and set the power. We'll add some trim. And yeah, the on-trim condition with the RCG, it's just something to be aware of. Alright, here comes the power. Let's go ahead and maintain height. All the way to idle, using our feet. 45, there's lots of airframe buffet that starts. Let's go ahead and hold the stick aft. We're at 4,001. It's 38 knots. 36. We're in a rate of descent. There's 36. Nose wants to drop. So I've still got the stick aft when it wants to recover there, but yeah, have a look at this rate of descent. It really just falls off with a whole bunch of extra drag. And look, we lost 200 feet that time, so it's just something that we should be aware of. Now we're going to do the same stall with flaps 2. I don't know if we will be able to stall the aircraft like that. The reason we're doing that is when the flaps come out, we will be shifting the centre of pressure forward, so this RCG will be even further aft. So the RCG doesn't change, it's just the moment between the centre of gravity and the centre of pressure changes. So we want to make sure that we're not right on the edge of that controllability. So we're through 50 knots. half flap. And there's a very distinct pitch down. That's what we like to see. Let's go ahead and raise the nose, add some up trim. And we're already through 45. Let's go ahead and go full flap. There's another pitch down. Cool, so at 3,900, we'll bring this power all the way back. We're at 35 knots, maintaining altitude 39. There's 31. There's a break there at 31, so we can see there's quite a pitch down attitude. And, but the aircraft recovers the way it should. So let's go ahead, just recover. I'll add some power. Don't want to go into a secondary stall. Lots and lots of drag. So we can see the relationship here between power, flap and drag is that the aircraft is pretty unhappy. Let's go ahead and just do some controllability here at 45 knots at full flap with power. We're looking okay at 45. We'll be expecting a stall speed of, oh fuck, who cares? Do the math later. And just we're leading with lots of rudder in these turns, but up to about a 30-degree angle of bank, it feels okay and stable. Pitch feels stable as well. So we can see with the RCG there is a lot more of aggressive brake here. So we'll just do one more after we've done some turns, and I'm pointing away from that town. There we go, so we're at 45. And let's go ahead here and bring the power back. So we're at 42, 3,700, 45. Power comes all the way back, all the way back, all the way back. There's 31, expecting, there's not a lot of buffer or any kind of indication. There's 28. 26, just being real gentle. Just want to see, there it goes. So there goes the nose through the horizon. All I did was reduce back pressure. Aircraft is recovering. It's doing everything that we want it to do. We'll just go ahead and raise the nose so we don't bust through our speed. So, let's go ahead and get rid of these flaps. We'll go to half. That's all the way down. I'm pretty happy with that. So, again, this is my first time flying the aircraft with an RCG, flying a Savannah with the full RCG. Flaps are away, they are clear, wings are clear, T's and P's are all okay, and carb temperature is looking okay as well. So this is my first time experiencing the Savannah with a full RCG, so seeing that recovery. The stalls that we did 2 days ago, there were some that I didn't get on video as well. They were the 30-degree angle of banks and all of those. So you can see there with that RCG, the stall brake with the flap is far more aggressive. We don't get that falling leaf, and that's purely because as the flaps deploy, the center of pressure, or where the lift vector over the top of the wing actually shifts forward, the center of gravity doesn't move, so it creates a larger moment, moment arm between the center of pressure as well as the center of gravity, which is why as soon as that lift breaks, the nose goes ahead and drops far more aggressively. So, doing low speed flying at full flap at that stall speed, there's going to be quite an aggressive nose down pitch, and if you're not ready for it, well, even if you're not ready for it, we lost maybe 200 feet there in that recovery. She ain't something you're going to be able to recover from super easily. So, yeah, RCG flying at MTOW, and we are at MTOW, is going to be, you want to have your pilot hat on for the day. And also a thing to note, I know I'm talking a lot, but a thing to note is how gently I'm approaching those stalls. Typically people aren't going to approach stalls that aggressively. You're going to be looking out the window, you're going to be turning the aircraft, and you're going to be adding G, and a stall like that is going to be really quite aggressive. You're going to drop a wing, you're going to lower the nose is going to drop through about 30 degrees through the horizon, and it's going to be a scary day for everyone on board. So those stalls are an example of being incredibly gentle with the stick and trying to do our best job of looking after the aeroplane. So it is what it is. But to get to MTOW and full RCG, man, you need a lot. You need full fuel, you need 190 kilos on the front two seats, and you need 20 kilos in the rear baggage shelf. So to get to that condition, you need to be really heavy. If you're regularly flying the aircraft with 2 people, half fuel, you're not going to be anywhere near this, the limit that I'm sitting on right now. And that sun's a little annoying, it's okay. So I'm just flying it back a little slow because I do know I've run out of forward trim. So I can just put my thumb on the stick and, I mean, hopefully you would have seen on the circuits we did the other day that there really isn't a lot of flying to do with the aeroplane. Even today the conditions aren't the world's best. There's a few bumps out here that I need to counteract for, but you get the idea that all that time I spent on the ground with the flight controls is paying dividends. That trim, but I'll sort that out. That's a minor issue. All I'm going to need to do is extend the rear arm just a couple of turns, and that will give me more travel in both directions. Still don't know what to do about this indicator showing neutral in the last 2 dots. I don't know if that's by design or something, but yeah. A quick look over everything. The engine's actually running too cool. I'm seeing 60 degrees on the cylinder head temps. I'm seeing about 59 on the oil temp, and the oil pressure sitting at 4.5 bars. It's a little high, but I think Graham overfilled the oil just a touch. It's a little overfull for my liking anyway. What else can we do? Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and see if the CG changes anything in roll. It doesn't. It's still sort of a little bit neutral. Doesn't really matter. We'll go do a couple more takeoff and landings, and honestly just enjoy flying the aeroplane. Because other than that low speed stuff, and you know, I know we've been on my soapbox about this quite a bit, about minimum speeds, and this isn't at you either, Kim. That's just a general thing I have. Maybe I'll show this video to other people that care or are building a Savannah or whatever. But you know, general rule is, you know, what it says in the book is not what gives you a margin of safety around the aircraft, right? So, you know, we discussed that there actually is only one stall speed for this aircraft. That's purely because the flap system and the ailerons, they're interconnected, you know, they're flaperons. So when you're actually moving the stick, is you can stall one wing or the other because you're literally changing your flap position. Your full flap position is, and that full flap stall speed is only if your wings are level. Anywhere outside of that, your stall speed is actually a clean stall speed. So with this thing at MTOW, that's 35 knots clean, and I think it's 28 with 2-stage of flap. So all calculations for your approach should be, it's a flaw of the general aviation world, is that you know, everyone says, oh, we should do an approach at 1.2 VS. It doesn't tell us the full story. In an aircraft like this, or you know, some Beechcraft aircraft, anything that's really draggy, is that your best glide ratio, your best glide speed, or your best performance speed, let's just call it that, is always going to then be above. It's always going to be above your approach speed or your departure speed. Why is that a problem? Well, that's all fine if something's going right. You know, this thing can take off and climb out at 45 knots. But if something goes wrong, we could even demonstrate that here. Why don't we? Let's go ahead and we'll pitch and climb just to keep the engine warm, because I'm putting my way along. And we'll just turn away from the sun here. So if I'm flying this thing at a number, so let's say 35 by 1.2, what is that? 3.5, yeah, so it's going to be 40 knots. So let's say I'm climbing out at 40 knots. I don't even know if I can get to 40 knots with this thing, and I lose an engine. I have negative time to recover. What I mean by having negative time is that the aircraft is in such a draggy condition, is that for me to recover the aircraft, I actually need to lower the nose further than what I need to get my best glide speed. speed. Because if I don't have best glide, I'm not making the performance I want. I'm going to slam into, well, I'm not going to get the climb that I want. So let's just keep pitching here. This is really quite aggressive. And we'll get to that 45 knots. And we'll just simulate an engine out here. And just watch what happens to the speed, how quickly it drops. So here we go. Power comes back all the way to idle. I'm going to kick the nose there. 45, 42, we've already stalled. Well, we haven't stalled, but the aircraft wants to lower its nose. So this aircraft's going to help us. The nose is going to drop quite aggressively. But if I don't do anything, the aircraft is going to do what it just did there. The nose is going to drop. So, you know, I'm busy when I'm taking off an aeroplane. I'm not fucking Tom Cruise. I'm not the world's best pilot. I'm not even close. So I want to have a number that if something goes wrong, I'm already in a position to do something. So at 45 knots, I'm below my best glide speed, which is 55, yeah? So if I'm below that performance, I have to do something like this to actually maintain my performance. I have to bury the nose to get the speed that I want. Otherwise, I'm potentially stalling. So what I do is I set a thing called my minimum controllable speed, and that's a number. There's a fancy guy on YouTube that does all of the math for you. But what it is it's a stall speed times bank angle times G-loading. So it means that I can control the aircraft during any controllability. I can be at 30-degree angle of bank, power at idle, and as long as I'm above that speed, I'm never going to stall, and I'm not doing something stupid like, you know, a 60-degree angle of bank, which we're typically not doing when we're landing. So, I know I've got to point towards the sun here, sorry, but yeah. So, the speed that we fly in an approach or as an approach or a takeoff needs to have that in consideration. So that's why initially I was flying my approaches at 65 knots, because if I lost an engine, so I could be in this position, I'm at 60 knots, power goes to idle, shit, I've lost an engine, I'm at 55, wow, all I need to do is just lower the nose this much. You can't see that because we're pointing into the fucking sun. I'm at my best glide. I don't need to do anything. I've helped myself before I've even got in the aeroplane by setting a standard that I don't need to, oh fuck, what's my best glide speed, all of this. I don't want to do that. I want to make my life easy. I'm a lazy pilot. I want things to be easy in the cockpit. So if I'm flying, climbing along, I'm also abusing the engine here for a reason, but you know, I'm flying along, I'm in a climb, I'm at 65 knots, which is not my best rate. It's a 10 knots above best rate, but if I lose an engine here and I'm at 200 feet, there's 2,000 feet. Let's just pretend I've taken off at 2,000 feet and I'm going to lose an engine at 100 feet. Have a look how much time I have to do something. 65 knots, there we go, there's 100 feet, engine failure. Nose already drops, I can pitch for 55, I've now got 10 knots to make a decision. Power's all the way at idle here. All the way at idle, all the way at idle, I can raise the nose, there's 55. Fuck, I can do whatever I want, I can roll over here. All that time, I've now just hit 100 feet. Now I need to be looking to put my wheels on the ground, but I had options. If I'm doing the same thing, even at best climb, or my best glide and best rate are going to be the same number, I'm already behind the 8 ball, right? If I'm at that number, what I have to do is unload the aircraft and accelerate down the hill to maintain that 55 knots. That means I'm losing height. So I'm going to go to 2,200 and we'll do the same thing. 2,200, engine failure. So I have to lower the nose this quick to maintain that 55 knots. Now I can look around. Now I can look around. I've just lost 15 seconds of my ability to make a good decision. There's the 100 feet. We're already on the ground. So giving myself that 10 knots as we depart is my safety margin. Can the aircraft do something other than that? Absolutely. The same thing's on approach. If I'm doing an approach at 40 knots, I hope to fuck I'm going to make the airfield because there's going to be trees between me and the runway. I lose an engine and I'm below best glide. What does that mean? Well, my descent rate is going to be higher. My distance across the ground is going to be less. I'm always crashing into those trees. There is no other option. I'm crashing into trees if I'm below best glide. I'm not making the runway. So we maintain our best glide or above until I'm assured I'm going to make the runway. And then we use flap to bring the aircraft in. If I have that mentality, even if something goes wrong, all I'm going to be thinking is how bored I am, because now all I need to do is just land the aircraft in a regular glide approach. You know, I know it's a different way of thinking, and it's maybe not 100% necessary. There is an airfield up here ahead of me somewhere. I'll make a radio call. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689 is 5 mile to the east of the field, 1,700 on descent, 1,500, be joining a left downwind, runway 14, Northern. I'm just lucky I'm really familiar with the area, so I know exactly where I am already. Northern is literally directly where the sun is, a little bit further over to the left. So we'll maintain 1500 and we'll just putt along low level. The sun will be below the horizon soon. Yeah, so, excuse me for being all soapboxy, I'm not telling you how to fly the aeroplane. What I am suggesting is ways that you can be safe. So the actual number, if you want to figure it out, is 1.404 times the clean stall speed. So in this case, that's 35, it works out being 49 knots. So my minimum speed in this aircraft is 50 knots. But again, the note is this 50 knots is below my best glide speed. Best glide is 55, which is why you'll see me flying either at 55 or through to 65 until I'm happy to pull flat. Make sense? So really I just run through an internal decision-making process is, do I need to land on a postage stamp? If I do, then the risk profile changes, right? I can fly the minimum speeds I need to get the aircraft into the postage stamp. But if I'm landing on a regular runway, it's nice to practice, but fuck, it would be dumb to lose an engine 100 feet from the runway and then have to crash it into the trees. So I want to make those good decisions before I get in the aeroplane, have a set of rules in the aircraft for myself before I even get into it, because then if something goes wrong, it is just super fucking simple for me to just go, oh my god, whatever, I'm just going to land the plane on the runway, because I'm already at the speed that I can, and I can position the aircraft where I need to for the runway. Anyway, sun's just below the horizon. As soon as it actually drops, we will keep using 3-2. Because it is the duty runway. And visual with the field. And Northern traffic, Savannah 1689 is joining a 5 mile final, runway 32 for some stop and goes. Northern. I'll annoy some people because I changed my mind. Okay, T's and P's all looking okay, fuel is looking okay, wings, just making sure there's no damage, yielding or anything like that, all okay. So, yeah, like I was saying earlier, 89 knots here, I've run out of forward trim, if I take my hand off the stick, the nose does wants to pitch up. This is something we will deal with as a maintenance item. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689, joining 3 mile final, runway 32, stop and go, Northern. So I'm going to follow those same rules on my way in here. I'm not doing a standard approach, obviously joining a 3 mile final. From here I'm obviously never going to be able to glide to the airfield, but following those same rules, if I keep my speed high, what it does buy me, even if I can't get to the runway, buys me options. I can do something. I can fly somewhere. If I'm below my minimum controllable speed, I can't do anything. I'm landing straight ahead. So with this speed, this option, this way of flying the plane, I have the ability to make decisions and I have time. And that's really what we're trying to do, is buy ourselves time. Test pilots aren't, they're really good pilots, but they fly larger envelopes, so they have time to make decisions in the cockpit. We're shit at making decisions under pressure as humans, not pilots. I mean, fuck, who knows? But being able to buy ourselves some time to make a good decision, is, do I want to crash into those trees, or actually there's a horse paddock just over there beside me that looks absolutely wonderful. Let's go ahead and drop into that one. So having options is all we're trying to buy with the way we fly the aircraft. Alright, so we're lined up on runway 32. I'll go ahead and make another call. Yeah, Northern traffic, Savannah 1689 is 2 mile final, runway 32, stop and go, Northern. And last light today. Yeah, sure, we'll get 1 or 2 circuits in, which is nice. Yeah, so you could see here, with no flap, I'm well above my best glide speed. I probably wouldn't make it to the runway here, it would be marginal, but I've got a field to my left, I've got a field over there to my right, I definitely would make it over there. Now we're getting closer. Well, okay, I still have power, but I would have been able to make it to that field there. If I was at this point flying at 45 knots, I absolutely wouldn't be able to. And with an aircraft like this that is draggy, you know, we're not talking we're flying a Glass Air or a Lance Air or something like that, there's so much drag that actually, without even changing the power, just changing the attitude of the aircraft, without even touching power will change the speed. The descent rate will stay just about normal. I'm at 42, I would like a little bit more power here, just to drag it in. Birds on the runway, there's 42, 42, hold the aircraft up, bring the power to idle, and we're down. Go ahead and jump on the brakes, if we would like. And we're well and truly stopped in like 60 metres, and I'm not even trying hard. We'll reset the aircraft, flight controls are full and free, T's and P's are all okay, fuel check is okay, and flaps are at half. We'll do a flaps half departure. We'll go ahead and, just so we can record this as a takeoff performance check, is we'll go ahead and line up here next to the middle taxiway on the ramp. Go ahead and do a departure. Drag races. Okay, nose wheels on the line. And pumps on, switches, stand the power up. Hold the aircraft on the brakes. There's 4,000, we're rolling. Brakes release, here comes full power. Not going to raise the nose, full power, 20 knots. Speed's alive, T's and P's is 25, we'll wait for 30, 32. Raise the nose, pitch, pause, wait. Does just kind of adding that aggressive pitch there. It does wallow, so I really kind of want to wait until I get to 38 knots, I think. Maybe even I'm just adding too much angle of attack initially, and it's just keeping it, keeping me a little bit slow on the way out. Anyway, let's pitch for flap speed. Another example of the speed here is, you know, I'm at 50, which is probably about what I want for flaps half. I want to accelerate through to 65 knots. At 65 knots, I've got options. I can turn left, I can turn right. I'll even be able to make it back to the runway from this position. Let's do a 500-foot circuit. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689 is turning right downwind, runway 32, stop and go, low level circuit. And again, of course, this is with RCG. And it feels good. Okay, brakes checked, undercarriage down locked. We'll just continue this turn. And what we'll do this time is we will use full flap, but I'm going to pull full flap right at the last minute once I'm over some power lines through the end of the runway there. I want to keep a nice, tight, close circuit, but I do also want to pick where I've got field. So I've got a field here off to my right. That's somewhere I can get to if anything goes wrong, and I've got the field over to my left. So I just want to keep those options available to me. 500 feet, I don't have a lot of room. Yeah, the 1,000-foot circuit is obviously a much better option. So let's go ahead, we'll bring the power back. I'm going to use the turn to slow me down. Is that 55 I'm looking for, which is best glide. Just going to add a touch of power. And we're just going to pause for flaps until I've made the runway. Pause for flaps. So you can see I'm 55, 60. I'm carrying that little bit of extra speed here because I just don't want the engine to quit on me and I have to land in a paddock. Okay, we're good. So we're going to go half flat. Power's going to come all the way to idle, and now we're going to set our speed. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689, final runway 32, stop and go. 50 knots. Comes full flat. Landing is assured, over the power lines. Now we can let that speed drop. I need to give myself a little bit of extra trim. So I'm at 50 knots, I'm still fast, but if I bring the power back, just raise the nose here a little, we're probably going to float a little down the runway. Nah, we're not, we're going to be okay. A little bit of rudder, straighten it up, touchdown on the 3-2, landed there at 36, and we stopped at like, oh fuck man, that's like 55 metres, and I'm not standing on the brakes at all. I don't want to stand on the brakes. Flaps, half, we'll get one more in, 26, could probably even get two more. So yeah, without even trying hard, we are able to get the aircraft stopped in very, very, very short order. So, yeah, even though I was fast there at 50 with full flat, by the time I got into the flare, we touched down probably, the numbers we're talking here are so inconsequential, 4 knots fast, who the fuck cares? It gives me room. So, flaps are half, flight controls are full and free. So this time I'm going to wait until 35, 36 knots before I pick that nose up and go to a flying attitude. Just don't want to add any alpha, and let's see if we can be in the air before this white hanger. So stand the power up, 4-2, 4-4, brakes released. Here we go. So full power, I'm going to hold the nose down. Speed's alive. There's 20, 25. Here comes 30, 35, 36, raise the nose, and we're flying. That is a much better roll. Much, much, much better roll. Okay, clear of obstacles, lower the flaps, lower the nose, add some trim, accelerate to 65. There's 65, we can pitch for 65. There's our 700 foot a minute. Got some good fields to our right. Over we go. We're sick of my fucking voice right now. Don't worry, my students say the same thing. I'm an instructor. I know the 500 foot circuit is a thing. I reckon if we do this at 700 feet, it's going to feel a lot nicer. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689, right downwind, 3-2, stop and go. I know it's an abnormal circuit height, but I think it'll just feel a lot nicer being at 700 feet. Because one, I'm close enough to see everything I need to. So I get a real good view of the actual runway. So I'm probably a little bit far from the runway, so I'm just going to turn in. And it gives me options. That extra 200 foot, I know I was fast last time, but I was really slow at getting the aircraft configured. That's a much better spacing. Cool. 50 foot low, that's correct. We'll try and be nice and accurate with this one. Okay, so just passing the threshold. Hopefully we don't run out of time on the camera. So there we go, we're past the threshold. Raise the nose, bring that power. I'm looking for about 2800, I reckon that's about what we're looking for. There's 55. I'm going to go flaps initially, and we're just going to see how that looks. I'm going to assume I have power, but need some more trim, and I need to lower that nose back down to best glide. There's 52. 4. That extra 200 feet, being 500 feet on base, Or, the extra 200 feet is because I'm configuring there. So being at 500 foot on base before you turn final, it feels way better. Way better. Even if I go full flap here, I'm going to make the runway. I'm at 55 knots. We're going to start that turn. I'm going to go full flap now. That's going to help me add drag. It's going to help me get to the runway. Yeah, so, yeah. Savannah drivers are rolling their fucking eyes because they already know all of this. Just going to add a touch of power just to get me over the power lines here. Maintaining 50 knots. Maintaining 50 knots. Now the power's going to come all the way back. I don't want to bury the nose at the runway, but I do want to maintain my aiming point. Still at 50, still at 50, still at 50, still at 50. There's 48, there's 46, there's some birds. There's 45. We'll hold the aircraft off. We're going to touch the middle of the piano keys, and we'll stand on the brakes. And we're stopped by the green hangar. How much have I got? 31. We have 8 more minutes available. Go flaps to 2. Trim, flight controls, full and free. Let's send it for one more. Do the same thing with the speed and the liftoff. 4,000, become brake release, we're going to hold the nose down. Hold. Speed's alive. 20, 25, becomes 30, 32. 35, 36, raise the nose, aircraft will leap off the ground. That's much better. We'll pitch it for 50. We're away from the ground, clear those flaps. They accelerate through now to 65. The attitude doesn't really change, all it changes is the trim. There's 65 knots. Aircraft looks good, feels good. It's 250. Over we go. I just want to be a full stop. But this one we'll just do with flaps 2. And why don't I do what I say? And we'll set the aircraft up for 500 foot a minute on base. Start this turn. Hold up traffic, Savannah 1689, turning right downwind, full stop, runway 32, hold. Again, you're just watching a guy figuring shit out as he goes. 100 foot high, that's okay, brakes checked, undercarriage, mixture mags, all of those other things are good. And we're looking okay, get the aircraft in trim, not flying it by the ball. Okay, so we're going to do it at 500 feet. Yeah, no, I still like that extra 200 feet. It gives me a better slant angle for the runway. If that makes sense. That extra 200 feet means I can actually see the runway and see if there's any kangaroos or people running around on it. So I do actually like that extra 200 feet downwind. Let's go ahead and configure. So I'll just bring the power. I'm not going to configure to flaps. I'm going to maintain height. So I can maintain that 500 foot AGL. There's 60 knots. We're at 500. We'll pitch trim for 55. We're looking good. We're looking good. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and bring that power all the way to idle here. And I'm not going to touch a thing. Northern traffic, Savannah 1689, turning final 32, full stop, Northern. Yeah, so it's a glide approach, this one, so I just got the power buried. I'm going to hold for flaps, going to keep that speed. I actually have quite a bit of margin here at 55, and if anything, I can bury the nose, cover that ground a little bit further, over the power line, so I'm all good there. Landing is assured, we can see the runway. Blown through centerline a little bit, that's okay. I'm going to hold the flaps off just so I can make the glide. So this was halfway down base, I just stopped adding any power. Still at 55, still at 55, I'm a little short, so I'm just going to bring it in. And we're good. Hold the nose up, hold the nose up, hold the nose up. And yeah, we still got full elevator authority. Right the way through, 35 knots. 35 knots. Still able to hold the nose. There's 32. There's 28. It's 26. And the nose finally wants to come down at 26. Fun times. So I was a little bit short there from a glide, but I could have fixed that by actually burying the nose, increasing the ground speed, and making it to the runway. Yeah, good aeroplane.